Established in 2017, Octominer is an international mining hardware company. They manufacture and engineer the best mining equipment in the industry and supply rigs to some of the largest mining farms around the world. Their GPU mining rigs also integrate with the top crypto operating systems like HiveOS, MinerStat, and Simple Mining. All parts come with an international 1-year warranty. Exciting news! They will be adding ASIC miners for sale to their website soon and launching a new product built specifically for ASIC home miners. Please visit octominer.com or email support@octominer.com for questions.
2022 recap and looking ahead to 2023. Maybe you guys need to probably get this information from Mr. Red Panda Mining, a Canadian miner. Canada. 2021 was a record for Bitcoin mining in Canada. With access to abundant, low-cost, sustainable energy, a highly skilled workforce, cold climate, underutilized industrial infrastructure, and a relatively stable and secure political environment. Was it? That was a super stable trucker movement. Caused no issues, guys. None. It's perfectly politically stable up there in Canada. Don't worry about it. I just wonder how Jordan Peterson would react to that. He'd have another withdrawal. Oh my God. Okay. We're done. We got this. Bitcoin's price was booming, and with business flooding in from China following the country's mining ban, Canada's Bitcoin mining gold rush was in full swing. In 2022, however, it went very differently. It started with momentum and carried over from the previous year. Bitcoin mining companies were making new investments and expanding existing operations, but economic and political headwinds made for a disappointing end of the year. We estimate that Canada's market share of global network hash rate peaked at 13% in 2021, only to fall to 7 to 8% by the end of 2022. In Canada and around the world, unprecedented economic and fiscal intervention, as well as significant monetary policy errors, led to 40-year highs in consumer price inflation. Attempting to bring inflation back to target levels, central banks raised interest rates, causing the prices of most financial assets to crash, and Bitcoin was no exception. In the real economy, growth in Canada and around the globe slowed substantially, and the United States experienced a brief technical recession. Remember, because they changed the definition of a recession in Wikipedia and locked the page. So it's like, and they changed it in Webster's Dictionary. So it's not a recession unless they say it's a recession by definition. But technically, by the old terms of recession, it was a recession. But it's not a recession because they changed the definition and they said that it's not a recession. Okay? Just to clear that, in case you were confused about what the government was telling you, just wanted to clear that up for you, okay? Are we on the same page? Not in a recession because they told us we're not in a recession, okay? All right? All right. Got it. In the digital asset space specifically, rising borrowing costs and falling asset prices triggered a wave of defaults and bankruptcies, the most spectacular of which was FTX. The price of Bitcoin fell 65%. To the further detriment of miner revenue, network difficulty rose almost 46%, primarily due to ASIC and infrastructure investments made under better economic conditions months prior. Hash price, what miners are paid for hash rate, the digital commodity they produce, was down almost 76% as a result. On the cost side, miner margins were further squeezed by rising energy costs in Canada and around the world. On the political side, and in the aftermath of the Canadian trucker protests, okay, so they're saying in 2021 that everything was good. So they are going to talk about the trucker protest because obviously, if we're talking about Bitcoin and we're talking about the ability for the working man to make a statement and still be able to participate financially within the economy, regardless of whether or not you agree or disagree with their position politically, the Canadian trucker protest was probably the single most important thing in North America that has happened in relation to cryptocurrency in the past couple of years, right? Or this cycle for sure. We always talk about, Argentina. We always talk about, Venezuela and Digibyte, Argentina and stable coins, and empowering the people, to fight back against the financial oppression of their government. But when we get into Western culture, that hadn't really happened yet until the Canadian trucker protest. Once again, whether or not you agree with them is kind of irrelevant when we're talking about what the purpose of Bitcoin is, which is to basically protect the individual from financial oppression by the government or banks, which in theory it did in this particular case. So if you're looking for a reason to support Bitcoin or one that was fundamentally sound within, of course, the principles of Bitcoin and the reason it was founded and created and what the whole mantra behind it is, then, you would probably say this would be a supporting factor within that, right? Governments across the country brought in harmful legislative proposals and new regulations which made life even more difficult for Canadian Bitcoin miners, pushing many to look elsewhere to expand their operations. In February, without advance notice to industry, the Department of Finance proposed an amendment to the Excise Tax Act, which would declare digital asset mining not a commercial activity in Canada. The Department of Finance proposed this despite the fact the industry employs thousands of Canadians all across the country, brings in billions of dollars in investment to rural and remote communities, and contributes tens of millions of dollars in tax revenue to support public services at all levels of government. If the proposal passes, companies engaged in digital asset mining would no longer be eligible to receive input tax credits for the value-added taxes paid on mining inputs. This unprecedented proposal would create a hidden tax that increases the cost of Bitcoin mining by 5 to 15%, making Canada a significantly less competitive jurisdiction. In response, Canadian miners formed their Fair Tax Treatment for Responsible Digital Asset Mining Coalition. They have so far been successful in pausing the proposed changes and have been imploring officials to consult with industry to learn more about digital asset mining, how it works, and how fair taxation and regulation can foster a healthy Canadian digital mining industry. Unfortunately, even while paused, the proposed tax change looms over all potential new investments in the country. But policy challenges were by no means exclusive to the federal government. In March, Ontario Energy proposed excluding cryptocurrency miners from participating in the Industrial Conservation Initiative. ICI is an electricity conservation program that allows participants to reduce their global adjustment costs based on their ability to reduce demand during 5 top peak demand hours. In Quebec, Newfoundland, Manitoba, and British Columbia, governments removed electricity allocations for new mining operations, citing energy use concerns. All this despite Bitcoin mining being a uniquely flexible electricity load, which can almost immediately shut down during times of energy scarcity and is economically incentivized to do so, and Canada generating far more electricity per capita than any G20 peer by far, 30% more than the United States and 150% more than G20 average. These misguided moves underscores the headwinds miners are facing from Canadian legislators and regulators. Canada is significantly behind jurisdictions like Texas, which are leveraging large flexible loads like Bitcoin mining to stable their electricity grid and incentivize the build out of new renewable generation capacity, a lack of education and abundance of negative publicity are setting the policy agenda in Canada. We believe the government's misguided approach to Bitcoin mining is the main driver behind the decline in Canada's hash rate market share in 2022. All that said, 2022 wasn't all bad news. Canada's largest public mining company, Hut 8, made new investments in Canada, expanding their Bitcoin mining and other data center operations to Ontario and British Columbia. Irish Energy built a 30 megawatt mining farm on the Columbia Lake Technology Center in Canal Flats, British Columbia, which helped to support dozens of jobs in the area. The company also made an inaugural $500,000 donation to First Nation communities in the Canal Flats region, a donation it's pledged to make annually going forward. For its part, DMG added energy demand for surplus hydropower in British Columbia, a move that lowers costs for taxpayers despite what regulators and politicians claim. Private miners were also innovating. Companies such as Cryptotherm and Upstream Data released new air-cooled and immersion mining systems. Energy companies expanded Bitcoin mining operations to capture otherwise flared or vented gas and to act as a load bank for excess energy. And some miners were experimenting with prototypes for repurposing waste heat. Alberta stepped forward as a welcoming jurisdiction for Bitcoin mining companies in conjunction with the Canadian Blockchain Consortium. The province hosted a roundtable for digital asset miners in September to develop strategies to encourage Bitcoin and other digital asset mining in the province, and in November led the country's first ever blockchain trade mission to the Texas Blockchain Summit. At first glance, the macroeconomic backdrop does not look favorable in 2023. Despite central banks raising interest rates significantly, inflation remains far above target levels in advanced Western economies. As the real economy teeters, markets are hoping for a central bank pivot and to return to easy money policies. They would do well to remember the inflation targets are legally mandated and central banks have yet to make meaningful progress on bringing inflation down, which means further increase in borrowing costs are likely. Energy costs could come down, but with chronic underinvestment in the industry and the potential for geopolitical flare-ups, there is risk to the upside. In Canada, generation capacity exists. It is just being hamstrung by ill-advised, politically driven decisions. For the macroeconomic variables outside of miners' control, it would be appropriate to prepare for the worst and hope for the best in 2023. On the policy side, Canadian miners are facing an uphill battle, but have an opportunity to make meaningful progress in 2023. Canada is naturally positioned to be a leader in digital asset mining and can continue to bring benefits to the country via jobs and economic diversification. If Canadian miners can just prevent policy that explicitly discriminates against digital asset mining, there is long-term upside potential in Canada. Up to this point, government relations efforts for the digital asset mining industry in Canada have been fragmented across issues and regions. As a result, the industry is not presenting a coherent narrative of industry benefits. It's not getting ahead of legislative and regulatory threats, and it's constantly playing catch up as new issues arise. In our view, Canada's Bitcoin mining industry is well overdue for a serious, permanent, and coordinated cross-Canada digital asset mining lobbying effort. A permanent body signals to government that our industry is not going away, which would help with a resolution on the federal tax issue. Establish a more credible deterrent for harmful policy endeavors in the future, and get ahead of issues on the industry's behalf. The industry needs to better highlight how producers of digital commodities add value to Canadian society. Digital asset miners create jobs, both upstream and downstream from site operators, including hardware manufacturers, infrastructure providers, and software engineers. They bring investment to their local communities, often in rural or remote areas with limited opportunity and underutilized industrial infrastructure. They improve environmental and energy systems efficiency and sustainability by using stranded gas that would otherwise be flared or vented, support electrical grid stability through the demand response, and enable the build out of new renewable generation assets. And perhaps most importantly, they help get stranded Canadian energy to international markets without physical transmission line or pipeline infrastructure, as hash rate is sold over the internet. Canada's success in digital asset mining in 2023 and beyond will be dependent on the industry's ability to change the narrative and educate policymakers on the benefits of welcoming responsible digital asset mining. And of course, this was Ethan Vera, COO of Lexor. They do a lot of stuff like this. Here's the thing. I'm much more leaning towards Canada fighting this in general, and pretty much all nation states fighting cryptocurrency in general, especially mining, from the environmental standpoint or, argument, without actually addressing the fact that mining in general as an industry has been more renewable than any other industry and is incentivized to do so. But I think while that will be the attack vector, the true attack is because of the way it enabled movements like the Canadian trucker protest. And, as it also did protect others in like Argentina with the stablecoin. And if you recall, in Argentina, of course, the argument there came from the UN, and the UN was like, no, we can't allow that. Why? Well, the UN kind of, put on tinfoil hat in some situations, may or may not intentionally collapse economies and rebuild them back up as a money-making opportunity. So, having the population of said country be able to protect themselves financially, that's a no-no. So the UN's definitely against the stablecoin movement. We saw, Digibyte in Venezuela kind of get shut down quite a lot too. And that was previous bull run. The thing is the attack vector will be it's bad or harmful for the environment. But the true reasoning behind it, in my humble opinion, will be that it gives too much power to the individual. And you can't have individuals running around out there with money that you can't print more of and send to Ukraine. You just can't have it. You can't have that, okay? You need more money for war. You need more money for war, baby. That's it. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Crypto Mining Show. You can check out the full episode here or more crypto content down here. Also, I'd like you to check out my locals page at sonofatech.locals.com, where you can become a member for free or choose to be a $5 a month supporter that unlocks additional content.